Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. I want to thank both the Chairman Carney, and Chairman Wilson for allowing us to come and continue this dialogue about what I think is one of the most critical education issues in the Commonwealth of Kentucky. Before I give my formal remarks, I think it's important to point out that sitting at this table is a rather diverse group. I think all of us have been involved in public service for a long time, different roles, but we haven't always agreed on different issues. We've always worked well together, and we're friends, but we've had some serious differences over the years on different issues, which we think is the best way to move forward for the Commonwealth of Kentucky. That's why I think it's interesting that on this particular issue, this diverse group has come together, and many others, in agreement that the role of the site-based council in the Commonwealth of Kentucky needs to be examined. I am not on the Education Committee, as you know. I've been in the Kentucky State Senate for 9 years, and each year I've become more and more interested in education issues. And you know, one of the things the previous panel says, I think was exactly right, is it does take a village to raise or to educate a child. It takes everyone in the community. Not just parents, not just teachers. We all are part of this great of American experience called public education. And it's the duty of all of us to help pay for it. We all pay school taxes, whether we have children, whether we're blessed with children. Whether we have children or whether we do not have children, everyone pays for schools. And that was exactly the way it was supposed to be. I think sometimes we forget how blessed we are that in this country, we were really the first country to ever have public education. The reason we have public education is not just so the rich and powerful can be educated, but everybody can be educated. And it's a responsibility of everyone to help pay for it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what I see as the larger issue, and then this distinguished panel that's with me today is going to get into some of the more specifics. But I think it's really important to realize, first of all, it's been said time and time again that someone's proposing the superintendent make all the decision. And that couldn't be further from the truth. But if you look at the way the system's set up, it's the elected school board represented by all the taxpayers in the school district, not just the parents, not just the people with children, not just the teachers. It's the elected school board that represents the people in that district. And it's the people who should have the final say on what goes on in the schools. Some site-based councils work very well. I'd be the first to admit that. Others not so well. That's not really the point, members of this committee. The point is that you have people making decisions about policy who sometimes don't even live in the taxing district which they're part of, who, you know, there's been much made about the parental involvement, and everyone here I know wants all the parental involvement that we can get. There's no question parental involvement is critical for a successful school. But the parents are a minority on this committee. They're, you know, by statute, they're the minority. They're not the majority. And in many, many schools, we simply don't have functional site-based councils. So at the end of the day, the question is, who is responsible for our schools? We hold the superintendent, who's hired by the representative of the people, the school boards, responsible for what goes on in our schools. If there's bad test scores in a school, or there's a discipline problem in a school, we don't blame the site-based council. We blame the superintendent. And the school board holds that superintendent accountable through evaluations. But we don't give the superintendent the tools to do the problem, to deal with the problem. It's basically a dysfunctional system at its core. Many of you know I'm a retired policeman. That's what I did before I came in the Senate. And back in the day, I investigated a traffic accident or two. And it was very common when you were investigating a traffic accident to see that the reason for that accident, particularly when someone was young and inexperienced, was that they overcorrected for an error. They maybe went into the ditch and then they overcorrected. I would submit to you that site-based councils are an overcorrection for what happened back in the 70s and 80s with nepotism and corruption in some of our school boards. It was simply that, an overcorrection. It was well intended. Everyone thought it was a good thing at the time. And there's many vested interests that are invested in it and want to continue in it. But it's simply not, when you look at the model, the American way to do things.